What if the very act of talking to yourself is a hidden code of intelligence, a secret mechanism through which the mind navigates complex problems and cultivates insight? In a world obsessed with external validation, where social interaction dominates our attention, the quiet conversation with one's own mind becomes an act of power, a subtle rebellion against distraction and conformity. Today, you will discover the 7 signs that this inner dialogue may be the hallmark of a mind operating at a higher plane of intelligence. A mind that sees patterns, questions reality, and bends the ordinary rules of thought. Speaking to oneself is far more than a simple habit or a fleeting quirk of personality. It is a window into the hidden architecture of consciousness, a bridge between thought and reality, and a subtle exercise in mastery over the mind's vast landscapes. When a person engages in self-talk, they are not merely articulating words, they are negotiating with the very forces that shape perception, memory, and understanding. Every spoken idea becomes a form of experimentation, a miniature laboratory where hypotheses are tested, outcomes imagined, and consequences explored. In this sense, talking to oneself is a sacred act, a conscious dialogue with the intricate mechanics of thought itself. In these moments, the mind functions in layers. On one level, it is practical. Self-directed speech allows for organization of complex ideas, sequencing of tasks, and rehearsal of strategies before they are enacted in the external world. Yet on another, more profound level, self-talk becomes reflective, almost meditative. The mind observes itself through the filter of language, transforming abstract emotions into tangible concepts and ephemeral thoughts into coherent narratives. It is in this duality that intelligence expresses itself most clearly, simultaneously practical and reflective, structured and fluid, logical and intuitive. Psychology supports this phenomenon. Research shows that individuals who habitually speak to themselves are not merely rehearsing plans, they are enhancing cognitive control, refining attention, and deepening memory encoding. When words leave the confines of thought and enter sound, they interact with sensory perception, anchoring the ephemeral into something more durable. Yet, beyond these measurable effects lies a more subtle, almost mystical dimension. By articulating thoughts aloud, the mind creates a feedback loop that allows one to observe patterns, detect inconsistencies, and refine judgment with a clarity that is rarely accessible through silent contemplation alone. There is also an emotional dimension. In the quiet articulation of fear, frustration, or hope, the mind begins to untangle itself from emotional entanglement. The act of speaking aloud separates the observer from the observed, creating a space where emotion can be processed rather than reacted to. It is as if the voice itself becomes a tool for clarity, a conduit through which the mind negotiates with feelings, reconciles conflicts, and cultivates resilience. In this sense, self-talk is an internal ritual, a deliberate shaping of mental space in which intelligence, self-awareness, and emotional regulation converge. Moreover, speaking to oneself engages imagination in ways that solitary thought often cannot. The mind begins to simulate possibilities, to project futures, and to explore consequences that exist only in the realm of potential. These imagined scenarios, when spoken aloud, gain weight, texture, and form, allowing the thinker to navigate them more efficiently. This is why creative breakthroughs often emerge not in silence, but in the act of vocalized reflection, where ideas are allowed to evolve organically, free from external judgment or interruption. The mind in these moments becomes both artist and scientist, poet and strategist, simultaneously constructing and observing the reality it contemplates. Beyond the individual, there is a subtle connection to the collective. Each word spoken, each internal dialogue engaged, resonates with the patterns of language and thought that define human cognition. By conversing with oneself, one taps into universal structures of reasoning and perception, participating in a hidden dialogue that stretches across minds, cultures, and time. Intelligence, then, is not merely personal, it is relational, existing as much in the subtle interplay of ideas as in the discrete processes of an individual brain. In its deepest sense, self-talk is an act of presence. It demands attention, fosters clarity, and creates a sanctuary for the mind to explore, question, and understand itself. It is a practice of engagement with the unseen, an acknowledgement that thought is not simply a tool for survival or action, but a living, dynamic process capable of perceiving patterns, detecting subtleties, and revealing truths invisible to ordinary observation. Those who speak to themselves habitually are not merely rehearsing life. They are engaging in a profound dialogue with the forces of consciousness, exploring the hidden textures of perception, and refining the instruments of thought and awareness. Thus, the act of talking to oneself becomes more than a cognitive exercise. It transforms into a spiritual discipline, a subtle awakening of intelligence that is as practical as it is mystical. It is a quiet mastery, a deep engagement with the mechanisms of understanding, and a continuous conversation with the self that reveals insight, nurtures creativity, and illuminates the unseen structures of reality itself. In embracing these inner dialogues, one begins to recognize that intelligence is not measured merely by knowledge or external achievement, but by the depth, clarity, and intentionality of the mind's conversation with itself. The voice that guides, challenges, and ultimately reveals the contours of a reality that exists beyond the surface of ordinary perception. Imagine this. You are standing in front of a mirror, but the reflection is not quite yours. It speaks, not with words you consciously remember thinking, but with intentions, insights, and questions that seem to emerge from nowhere. This is the strange territory of self-directed speech, where the ordinary rules of thought, linear, predictable, safe, begin to bend. Those who speak to themselves in solitude are doing more than organizing ideas. They are entering a liminal space where the mind encounters its own hidden capacities. Science tells us that self-talk strengthens cognitive control, yet what it does beyond measurable effects is far more intriguing. When you vocalize a plan, a worry, or a fleeting observation, you create a dynamic interplay between thought and sound, between inner perception and externalized reflection. This interplay allows the mind to notice subtleties that would otherwise remain invisible. You begin to see connections, anticipate outcomes, and detect inconsistencies in ways that feel almost impossible until you witness them unfolding in the dialogue with yourself. It is as if the act of speaking aloud amplifies intelligence, awakening latent faculties that silence cannot reach. Now consider this. The people who quietly talk through problems, rehearse conversations, or narrate their feelings often outperform those who rely solely on internal reflection. They are faster at solving complex problems, more creative in their solutions, and more attuned to patterns in the world around them. Why? Because vocalized thought creates a space between the observer and the observed, between intention and action. This space allows insight to emerge unhurried, almost as if the mind is revealing secrets it has been guarding. And yet, few recognize this hidden advantage. Many dismiss talking to oneself as eccentric or unnecessary, unaware that it is a subtle signal of extraordinary mental acuity. When the voice within becomes audible, the mind begins to map realities that cannot be seen otherwise. It tests scenarios, anticipates reactions, and even rehearses emotional responses, preparing the individual to navigate the world with a precision and depth that remains invisible to outsiders. Here is the tension. This ability exists in plain sight yet remains unnoticed, like a hidden current beneath a calm surface. It is ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in effect. The more one engages in this dialogue, the more the mind becomes a laboratory of intelligence, exploring questions, testing ideas, and uncovering patterns that the untrained eye would overlook. The act of speaking to oneself, once thought mundane, reveals itself as a profound tool for heightened perception, a tool that bridges the seen and the unseen, the known and the yet to be understood. Even more astonishing is the subtle influence this has on creativity. Vocalized thought allows for ideas to interact dynamically, collide, and recombine in ways that purely internal reflection rarely permits. Your own mind becomes a collaborator, a silent mentor, and a rigorous critic simultaneously. Insights emerge as if by magic, not from external teaching, but from the deliberate attention and articulation of thought within. And so the question lingers: if this process is so powerful, why is it hidden? Perhaps because the greatest tools of intelligence are often invisible, disguised in ordinary behavior. To speak to oneself is not merely a habit, it is a doorway, a method through which the mind discovers its own capabilities and glimpses patterns that exist beyond conventional understanding. In this liminal space, you begin to sense the extraordinary potential of your own mind, and a subtle awareness takes root. The inner voice you once ignored, the whispered reflections you dismissed, are in fact the markers of intelligence at work. They are not idle or random. They are signals of a mind attuned to its environment, capable of perceiving, processing, and predicting in ways that transcend ordinary cognition. And now, having glimpsed this hidden dimension, the mind is primed. It begins to expect more from itself, to notice more, to listen more deeply. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the act of speaking to oneself transforms into a ritual of insight, a practice of intelligence that quietly shapes thought, perception, and ultimately reality. Now we arrive at the heart of the revelation, the core insight that gives meaning to the quiet murmurs of thought you may have once ignored. Those who engage in self-directed speech are not merely entertaining themselves, they are cultivating profound intelligence. Their minds operate on levels that blend logic, creativity, emotional mastery, and awareness into a single, flowing current. The act of talking to oneself is a ritual of insight, a deliberate conversation with consciousness that reveals capacities often invisible to the external world. The first sign emerges in self-awareness. Those who frequently converse with their own minds notice the subtle movements of thought, emotion, and intention as they arise. By vocalizing internal experiences, they create a mirror within the mind itself. This is not mere reflection. It is active observation, a deliberate engagement with the mechanics of thought. They become attuned to patterns in their own behavior, motivations that previously went unnoticed, and emotions that influence decisions more than they realize. In articulating these elements, the mind refines itself, strengthening its ability to respond with clarity rather than reaction. Next comes strategic thinking, the ability to map out complex scenarios before action. When one speaks aloud, planning shifts from abstract imagination to a structured rehearsal. The mind can anticipate consequences, weigh variables, and simulate multiple outcomes simultaneously. In these moments, intelligence is not passive, it is performative, a dance between prediction, adaptation, and understanding. Speaking to oneself becomes a rehearsal space for mastery, a mental stage where ideas can be tested without risk and refined before reality demands execution. Emotional regulation manifests as the third sign. By giving voice to feelings, frustration, fear, hope, or doubt, the individual gains distance from them. Speech creates a subtle separation between observer and experience. This separation allows emotion to be examined rather than reacted to, a practice that cultivates calm, composure, and clarity. The mind learns to navigate turbulent inner landscapes, transforming emotional storms into maps of understanding rather than chaos. The fourth marker is problem-solving mastery. Complex challenges are approached as conversations with the self. Hypotheses are proposed, tested aloud, and refined in real time. This dialogue is iterative and dynamic, allowing for rapid insight that silent thought rarely achieves. The mind externalizes the invisible structure of problems, making patterns apparent, solutions accessible, and errors detectable before they materialize in action. Enhanced memory forms the fifth sign. Speaking thoughts aloud anchors them in both auditory and cognitive perception, creating a neural imprint stronger than silent reflection alone. Words become vessels for memory, allowing concepts, plans, and ideas to be recalled with precision. The voice transforms fleeting thoughts into durable knowledge, building a mental library that evolves continuously with each dialogue. The sixth sign is creativity and innovation. The mind that converses with itself explores possibilities unfettered by external judgment. Ideas interact, collide, and recombine in novel ways when vocalized. The act of speaking aloud transforms imagination into experimentation, allowing insight to emerge as if spontaneously, yet guided by an invisible intelligence born of deliberate practice. Every narrative unfolds new pathways, revealing solutions, designs, and patterns that remain hidden to those who think silently. Finally, we arrive at metacognition, the ability to think about thinking itself. This is the most profound sign, an awareness of the mind's own processes. Self-talk allows one to observe thought in motion, to question assumptions, to test the validity of ideas, and to refine reasoning continuously. It is an intelligence that monitors, evaluates, and improves itself, a subtle, almost mystical force that exists in dialogue rather than solitude. These 7 signs, self-awareness, strategic thinking, emotional regulation, problem-solving mastery, enhanced memory, creativity, and metacognition, reveal that talking to oneself is not a trivial habit, nor a social quirk. It is a sacred practice of the mind, a dialogue with consciousness that sharpens perception, nurtures insight, and elevates intelligence to levels that are rarely recognized but profoundly powerful. And here lies the ultimate truth. When you speak to yourself, you are not merely processing information, you are sculpting your mind, training it to perceive the invisible, anticipate the unseen, and create order from chaos. The inner voice, long dismissed as idle or eccentric, is in fact a secret instrument of intelligence. Those who cultivate it are quietly mastering themselves, shaping reality not through force, but through the deliberate, conscious articulation of thought. This is the hidden pathway through which intelligence grows, expands, and touches the edge of genius. Through self-talk, the ordinary mind transforms into a landscape of infinite possibility. It is the mind in dialogue with itself, exploring, questioning, creating, and ultimately discovering truths that remain invisible to those who never dare to speak, to listen, or to reflect aloud. Perhaps as you listen to these insights, you feel a quiet recognition stirring within you. You remember moments when speaking aloud clarified a decision, calmed a storm of emotion, or illuminated a path that seemed invisible in the silent churn of thought. Maybe it was a phrase muttered while working through a difficult problem, a whispered reflection on a choice, or even a self-directed encouragement in a moment of doubt. These are not coincidences. They are subtle signals that your mind has been practicing its own form of intelligence, quietly, away from the gaze of others. It is deeply human to question ourselves, to engage in these solitary conversations, and yet it is often dismissed in the world around us. Society tends to valorize external dialogue, visible achievement, and measurable output, while the private, internal work of the mind goes unnoticed. And yet, it is precisely in these private spoken moments that your mind is growing sharper, more adaptable, and more perceptive than ever before. This is where intelligence takes root, not as a public display, but as a quiet cultivation, a dialogue with the self that shapes how you perceive, feel, and act in the world. Think about the last time you spoke your thoughts aloud during a challenging situation. Perhaps you clarified your priorities, rehearsed an important conversation, or untangled an emotional knot. In that act, you were not merely verbalizing thoughts, you were engaging in a ritual of self-mastery. The mind that listens to itself grows, evolves, and gains perspective. It is a conversation with your own potential, with the voice that is always present, yet too often ignored. And this is where the experience becomes personal, almost sacred. You are not an observer of intelligence, you are an active participant. The murmurs of your mind, once dismissed as trivial, are in fact the instruments through which understanding, creativity, and foresight manifest. To recognize this is to recognize yourself. The observer, the thinker, the problem solver, the artist, and the strategist, all woven into one conscious being. The dialogue you hold within is the dialogue that shapes the life you lead. There is also comfort in this realization. You are not alone in this inner practice. Countless brilliant minds, from thinkers to creators, scientists to mystics, have understood the power of speaking to themselves. It is a practice that transcends culture, time, and circumstance. The moments you spend talking quietly to your own mind connect you to a lineage of human intelligence that is private, profound, and deeply transformative. This chapter of reflection is an invitation to see yourself not as someone idly speaking aloud, but as a participant in a process that cultivates clarity, depth, and insight. To honor this inner dialogue is to honor yourself, to recognize that the act of speaking to yourself is a practice of wisdom, a ritual of self-awareness, and a tool through which your mind navigates complexity with elegance and precision. In embracing this understanding, you begin to notice the subtle shifts within. Decisions feel lighter, insights come more readily, and patterns previously hidden become visible. Your internal voice is no longer background noise. It is a guide, a teacher, a companion on the path of understanding. It speaks not to impose, but to illuminate, not to command, but to reveal. And as you listen, respond, and engage, you cultivate a form of intelligence that is both deeply personal and profoundly powerful. The journey of self-talk is, at its core, a journey of self-recognition. To speak, to hear, and to understand yourself is to step into a dimension of intelligence that is rarely celebrated but infinitely rewarding. It is a quiet revolution, unfolding within the mind of one who is willing to listen, to reflect, and to participate fully in the conversation that is the truest expression of conscious thought. Now, having witnessed the power of the inner dialogue, you are invited into a deeper practice, not of action in the world, but of attentive presence within it. Speaking to yourself is not merely a habit to observe. It is a tool to cultivate, a ritual to honor. The moment has come to engage intentionally, to listen with purpose, and to let your mind speak aloud in ways that illuminate unseen truths. Begin by observing your thoughts. Allow them to rise without judgment, letting each idea, feeling, or question emerge naturally. Then, give them voice. Speak aloud what your mind is trying to process. Name the uncertainties, articulate the possibilities, and voice the choices that feel hidden in the silent corners of your consciousness. This is not about perfection or eloquence. It is about connection, clarity, and conscious engagement. In this dialogue, your mind begins to reveal what was previously invisible, untangling complexity and exposing insights that only emerge through deliberate attention. This practice transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. A simple murmur in solitude becomes a conversation with intelligence itself. You are no longer merely reacting to circumstances. You are anticipating, observing, and understanding the inner and outer world with subtlety. Problems that once seemed overwhelming begin to unravel, not because the external situation changes, but because the dialogue within aligns your perception, sharpening intuition and illuminating choices. As you continue, notice how your inner voice grows more nuanced, more precise. It begins to act as both mentor and guide, reflecting your deepest potential back to you. Your thoughts, once fleeting, gain structure and direction. Emotions, once chaotic, find clarity and grounding. The mind becomes a laboratory, a sacred space where insight, strategy, and creativity converge, revealing layers of intelligence that were previously dormant. This awakening is not dramatic. It does not require a grand gesture or a sudden epiphany. It unfolds quietly, imperceptibly, in the simple commitment to listen and respond to your own mind. Each conversation you hold with yourself is an act of mastery, a cultivation of awareness, a sharpening of perception, and a quiet expansion of intelligence. And here is the hidden magic. By honoring your inner dialogue, you are aligning yourself with a deeper rhythm of reality. Thought becomes more intentional, perception more refined, and insight more frequent. You are participating in the invisible architecture of intelligence, where clarity and understanding are not bestowed externally, but cultivated within. The act of speaking to yourself is an opening, a doorway through which consciousness can explore its own vast potential. This is the invitation, not to change the world outwardly, but to awaken the mind within. Engage with your inner voice consciously. Let it speak, let it guide, let it illuminate. Allow the mind to practice its intelligence, to test, to create, to question, and to reveal what was always present but often unnoticed. In this practice, you are not merely thinking, you are awakening. And in awakening, the ordinary world begins to shift. Decisions become sharper, perceptions become clearer, and the subtle currents of possibility become visible. You are participating in a process that transforms not only your mind, but the way you inhabit your own reality. This is the power of conscious dialogue. It is quiet, it is subtle, but it is extraordinary. It is the art of listening to oneself, the ritual of understanding, and the pathway through which intelligence becomes both a personal practice and a mystical force shaping life from within. And now the conversation comes full circle. In the quiet of your mind, in the subtle murmur of thoughts spoken aloud, you begin to sense something profound. That intelligence, clarity, and insight are not external gifts, but emergent properties of a mind willing to listen to itself. The whispers you once dismissed, the soft reflections, the questions, the rehearsed ideas, are not idle noise. They are the instruments through which understanding, perception, and wisdom take form. Consider the stillness that follows a self-directed thought, the moment when a solution arises, seemingly from nowhere, when an idea crystallizes in a way that surprises even yourself. This is the evidence of a mind attuned, a consciousness engaged, a soul practicing its own intelligence. The voice within, long ignored or undervalued, is the hidden architect of perception, quietly shaping how you experience reality. It is through these inner conversations that the mind reveals its power, guiding you toward insight, creativity, and awareness in ways that the outside world cannot teach. There is a rhythm to this practice, subtle yet inexorable. The more you speak, observe, and reflect, the more the mind awakens to its own hidden capacities. Patterns become visible, connections emerge, and what once seemed ordinary reveals itself as extraordinary. This is not knowledge handed down. It is knowledge discovered, cultivated through patience, presence, and deliberate engagement with the self. Each conversation with your own mind is a ritual, a sacred act of attention that draws the invisible into form and the unseen into understanding. And yet, the most profound realization is that the mind's intelligence does not shout. It whispers, it nudges, guides, and illuminates. The insights it offers are subtle, almost imperceptible, until you cultivate the attentiveness to notice them. In this, there is beauty, mystery, and power. The ordinary act of speaking to oneself becomes a sacred practice, a dialogue with the very essence of consciousness, and a gateway into deeper understanding of life, reality, and the self. As you carry this awareness forward, you may notice the world around you subtly shifting. Decisions feel lighter, challenges become clearer, and the currents of life seem more navigable. This is the reflection of a mind that has learned to listen, to engage, and to dialogue with itself. The intelligence that was always present within you becomes palpable, alive, and transformative. And so, the cycle continues. The quiet conversations, the whispered insights, the rehearsal of thoughts, they are not mere habits. They are the expression of a consciousness that is awake, curious, and deeply attuned. The voice within is the companion that guides, the teacher that reveals, and the mirror that reflects your own potential. In the end, to speak to yourself is to acknowledge that your mind is not simply a vessel for thought, it is a universe unto itself. And in this universe, every word, every reflection, and every insight is a step toward mastery, awareness, and the realization of the intelligence that quietly, profoundly, and endlessly shapes the life you live. Listen to it, honor it, let it speak. For in the soft murmur of your inner voice, the hidden dimensions of thought and reality reveal themselves, and you begin to see not only who you are, but what your mind is capable of becoming.